So if you don't already have a worksheet created or saved as a PDF file, you can create your own in Microsoft Word. I'm just going to go over a couple of general things first. This area up here is called the ribbon. If you don't see your ribbon fully displayed, you can just double click any one of these tabs and it will sort of lock the ribbon in place for you so it doesn't keep disappearing. This is where you can type a question to ask for some help if you're trying to figure out how to do something or you can't find a tool. A lot of the times your formatting that you're going to choose are on the Home tab. Insert is where you would be able to insert a picture or online pictures, formerly called clip art. And then those are probably the two that you're going to use the most. So if this was a regular worksheet, you might start with a name line. But if you're going to put this on Teams and attach it to an assignment, you really don't need that because it will already be attached to the student that's signed in Teams. So I was just going to show you how to use some tools and manipulate some things. One thing that's useful sometimes in Teams is one thing you can use to help you set up your page is you can use columns, and that's under the Layout tab. You can choose 2, 3, or you can choose a small column on the left, small column on the right, or there's some other options here. This might be good if you're doing like a matching activity or just an article to see where the column breaks. Here, if I turn on the show hide button, you can see by default where the two columns would be on your page. And if you go back under the Layout tab, you can choose to have a line between the columns also if you'd like, just to space them a little better. So if you wanted to, you could have one term on the left and then the definition on the right, or something like that. That can get a little cumbersome sometimes. So what I like to use to put things in the exact spot I need is text boxes. So I'm just going to undo to get rid of the columns and everything else I just did. And I'm going to turn off this show hide button here. So under the Insert tab, you have shapes. And under your shape, you have a text box. And you can draw the text box to be whatever size you need. By default, when you have a shape selected, you will see the Drawing Tools Format tab open up. If you don't see that opened up, it's probably because you don't have your shape selected. So you'd have to double click your shape and then you'll see this toolbar displayed. Shape fill, for right now, it might not seem like that's a big deal, but if you're going to overlap some things, you would want the shape fill to be no fill so that it would be see-through. And then you can also do an outline. Sometimes I like to make my outlines thicker, especially if it's for directions or something like that. And there's some shape effects you can experiment with if you want to. Sometimes it just makes your worksheet look a little bit more impressive. There's lots of options in here that you don't even have to worry about, or you can experiment with if you would like to. Not a big deal. Remember, if you ever make a mistake, you always have undo. So in this text box, perhaps I want to make this my directions for the worksheet. I'm going to ultimately follow pretty closely to the directions that Lori Murphy sent out about saving this in our OneNote notebook. So I'm going to make the directions for that. I think it's called the drawing tab. Use the draw tab and select. So now I can format my font just like I normally would. If I need to make anything bold, change the color, change the font style, whatever I need to do, I can do that just like in a regular Word document. Resize my text box. So now I'm ready to create my terms. So as an example, my first term would be this, HTML. So if I want to format my text boxes the same way, I can actually just copy. I'm doing Control C, and paste is Control V. And don't worry if they aren't lined up. I'll show you how you can fix that. So if you press Control while you click, sometimes you can select more than one object. But if that doesn't work, there's this select arrow over here. I'll choose Select Objects, and now when I press Control while I left click, it lets me select all three of those text boxes. Go to the Drawing Tools Format tab, Align. I'm going to align left, and they are all aligned to the left margin of the text box. I can also distribute them vertically, so it'll line them up and space them out according to the top and bottom text box. When you're done selecting your objects, you can just click Select All and click Away. So perhaps my second term, now I want to change it. And whatever this one should be. I have my terms on the left. Now I can use text boxes to put the definitions on the right. Resizing the text box as needed, and just to keep things consistent, I'm going to use the Format Painter to copy the format for the same font and the same font size. And then I can take the outline out if I don't want the outline in here. Copy it, paste it 2 more times. Perhaps these ones I'm going to probably align to the right. So I'll completely make them crazy so you can see how that works. So I will use the select tool to select the objects, Control, left click, go to the Format tab, Align Right. Now if I distribute these ones vertically, you can see they're much further spaced out because I had the bottom text box all the way down here. What you can do is I could select these two and say to align top. Or you can just eyeball it and figure out what looks good. Now I just want to show you a couple other things that you can do inside of a Word document if you need to maybe add some more pizzazz to your worksheet or your lesson. Okay, so under Insert, we have some other shapes besides a text box. If you want to draw attention to perhaps some special instructions or a reminder or a note, you may want to use one of these starbursts. You can right-click a shape, I think any shape, and add text and just type in it. And again, you can make the fill whatever you need to. I am going to make the fill actually, I'm going to make it white so I can show you something. I'll make the outline thick and I'm going to make it black. It's easier to see black and white. Change my font. Your most recently used fonts appear at the top here, and then all the other ones are listed alphabetically, in case you didn't know that. Get my shape. So here is where you might be interested in doing some of those shape effects, just to draw some more attention to your directions or whatever else you're doing. But what I like to do is I can just copy and paste the shape again. This time I am going to fill this with black so you can't even see the text. I'm going to use my arrow keys on my keyboard to just sort of nudge it a little to the right and maybe a little up or down. Now you have these options here where you can bring something to the front, send something to the back, or if you have multiple shapes, you can just send